So,
Yes, sir.
as an example, in the state of Maine, there is a law which requires parents and legal guardians to provide adequate medical care for their children. However, there's an exception to the law for religious purposes. And I'm only using that as an example. So the question is, under what circumstances, if any, should there be an exception to following the law based on religion?
In that circumstance, I'm not sure that there should be any exception. I would like to know a little bit more about the details and what that exception might look like. But in general, I think that law is there for a reason.
Okay. Now, putting that specific law aside and going to the general principle, like under what general principle would you apply to decide if there should ever be an exception to following the law based on religion?
That's a really complicated, kind of complex question. I'd have to give that some more thought, and I'd like to do that before fully answering it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, though.
Okay. Now, but as it applies to vaccinations, for example,
Right.
did I understand correctly that you oppose the exception when it comes to vaccinations?
No, I think I was served in the legislature where there were bills that go through, and I think vaccinations were one of those instances where that exception was applied.
So you favor the exception in the instance of vaccinations for children?
I'm not. So again, just for religious purposes, or for other, because I think sometimes these can be written in a way that you can drive a truck through, and that there's no real.
The law says for religious purposes or purposes of conscience, which basically which suggests that any exception that pops into your head could legally apply.
Right.
But I'm just looking at the prima facie, the idea of an exception based on religion, and the question was general, if that should ever be the case, but because it is in law an exception to giving vaccinations to children, I'm wondering how, because you weren't able to answer the question at the most general level, so I'll ask it a more specific. Should there be a religious exception to providing vaccinations to children?
Yeah. So let me. My general gut tells me that we have vaccinations and public health programs for a very specific reason. That's to protect the general population. But if I could, let me give that some more thought and talk to you again about it.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Appreciate it.